one
the
segment
chaos.
in
issue that I
CCSanté
faced
It was
every
was
amazing.
time
parameter I was
to
giving
just
Thank
be
you,
to
thanks for
people
was
having
sharing
missing
me
a
to
one
all
cool
feature.
my
thing that
chaos
they've seen.
stories, my
And then
own
what I ended
chaos
up
and
doing
my
was
city's
actually
It
chaos
is
and
panning
my
it depending
home's
on the
chaos.
chaos and
mind-blowing
not
what people have
changing
been
anything
doing
else.
all around.
Like, so as you move your phone, it just pans to like the different Hey everyone, I'm Sangharshanan. I am a developer from Bangalore, and I think that's like very generic. So I thought I would do some live coding. Uh, and I've been working on like different live coding softwares for I think it's been around a year now. Uh, but the one thing that I really like is I think two things I really like is one is Sonic Pi and the other is like processing. Which I think that are the first things that I ever started with. So I'm like very attached to them, even though like there are a bunch of new shiny things and like weird programming languages, esoteric stuff to explore. These two were like my first, which I discovered in like college. So they've always been quite close to me. And since I come from a computer science background, uh, I have been kind of trying to build some kind of tools around like live coding, like kind of tools that can be used along with like these other live coding tools. One such tool I was working on was like a web interface for Sonic Pi, where you could like kind of tune things through the web by sending like OSC signals and stuff like that. And the other project which I want to kind of talk about here is a digital like a software synthesizer, which I have been working on for like the past month. So I think this talk, yes, I am roguentropy on Instagram, and I post like small snippets of music that I do. Uh, so I have been working on like this software synthesizer for around a month, which I want to just quickly show a demo of. I think that's my talk. It's going to be like very short. I don't have like a proper presentation. I'll just like share my screen, show my project, see what like you can just take a look at what I've been up to. And I think I'm not a synthesizer person. Like I actually don't own a synthesizer at all, which is what pushed me to build one like in software. But I would like to hear feedback from you guys. Like I want to keep this like a little more like know about like what you all think, what I should do and stuff. So I'll just quickly share my screen, show my project, what I've been working on, and the kind of sounds that I've been trying to make, and then maybe you can give me some. Oh, I cannot share my screen. Can I get?
Anushka, you need to give permission.
I
Oh, now
think
I
it's
can. Now I can. I know it just said like host or something, and now I can share my screen.
all right.
And to share my audio, I need to do something. Okay, advanced.
Yeah, I was just showing you the chat.
I think when you're sharing it on Zoom on the right side, it gives me options to share sound.
Yes. I just did it. Wow, Zoom has changed a bit. Uh, okay, cool. Uh, I think can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is my project on GitHub. I call it Synthur. I don't know why. Uh, but so it is just like a synthesizer. Uh, you can just like it's actually an object-oriented synthesizer. So what it essentially does is you can build your own synthesizer with like code, which is like I thought like what would be like the nerdiest way to build a synthesizer, and building a synthesizer is anyway like so nerdy, but I wanted to go further into that. Just to do it just with software and not involve like hardware, because I'm very bad at hardware. I am like I get very scared around like circuitry and stuff. Like I would love to get more comfortable, but with software I am like much more comfortable. So what I have been working on is like an object-oriented way to like build your own synthesizer. So just like a brief intro to like what a synthesizer is, if anybody doesn't know about it, I feel like people know about it, but I would just like to give like a short intro. Synthesizer is just like a way to like synthesize sounds of like different timbres, but using electrical signals. Like when you play a guitar, when you strum a guitar, or like when you play a flute or any kind of instrument, what it does is essentially generates these sound waves of different shapes, different frequencies, depending on how hard you blow or like how strong you play, different amplitudes or whatever. And this is what kind of sounds to us as music. We can do the same with electrical signals. And what synths do is they use these oscillators which oscillate, at a certain shape, at a certain frequency, certain amplitude, whatever parameters you want to tune. And when these oscillators are actually controlled by voltage, which is why it's like electrical. Uh, so depending on how much voltage you give, you kind of can change some of the parameters of the synthesizer. And these VCOs or voltage control oscillators kind of make the base of the synth. Like that's what creates the sound. And on top of these, you can actually do modification to these waveforms. Like let's say you want to add a filter, like you want to cut some of the frequencies out, or you want to kind of modulate it, combine two waves to generate your own wave. Or like crazy stuff like that, which is essentially what synthesizers are doing. So I have written like a small blob about it. By the way, I'll share like all of these resources if anyone is interested, and if anyone wants to is also into building software synthesizers and wants to help out, like I would be more than happy to discuss with you, because this is a project that I really loved working on. Essentially, this is what the synthesizer does right now, and this is just like a readme of like what I learned while I was exploring this. Yeah, and I think this is just the basic stuff which I talked about, right? Like a synthesizer doesn't just need to have oscillators and filters. It can also have like a bunch of other things like envelopes, which is like you can set how these sounds behave over time. Right now we just talked about like a sound wave as an isolated entity, but then sounds move over time, right? Like it plays for like 1 second, 5 seconds. So how should it move over those 1 second? Like when should it reach its peak amplitude? How long should that amplitude sustain for? And how long should it take for it to decay as you leave the note, when you're playing the instrument? So all of these very interesting components which you can find parallels when also playing like a physical instrument of sorts. But yeah, without boring you all much, I think I will go to the demo. So this is a Python package essentially. So what you can do is, if you have Python installed, you could just like pip install Synthur. And I actually just pushed it 1 hour ago to get it working. It was just working locally, which is the excuse every developer uses. But I wanted it to work for everyone, so I made some fixes, pushed some things, and now it should ideally work for everyone. Unless you have a weird operating system. If you do, like ping me, I'll be happy to fix it for you. But it works on Mac, Linux, Windows. If you don't have anything obscure in Linux, it should work. I tested it on Ubuntu. So what you can do essentially is, once you have installed Synthur, you can import different things. So here are 4 modules that I have written. One is a gated sound. A sound is essentially the base of everything that gets created using this synthesizer, which is essentially what outputs the sound. Right, and I'm calling it gated sound because it has a start gate and a stop gate, which is kind of how it works in a synthesizer. So when the note should start and when the note should stop, or when the sound should start, when the sound should stop. Actually, it's a gated sound player. So that's what is sound. And then we have the envelope, which kind of dictates how the sound should be moving across time. And then we have the oscillator, which essentially actually makes the sound. And then we have like a simple butter filter, which essentially adds like a filter on top of the sound. So there are different types of filters. There are like a low pass filter if you want to cut down frequencies below a certain value, and there is a high pass filter which you want to do if you want to cut it above a certain value. And if you want to keep it in an interval of like this frequency to that frequency, I want only these, you can set like a band pass filter as well. Which is like a different type of filters you can apply on top of a waveform. And once I have had these modules built and running, what I tried to build for my project was to build a 303 synthesizer. And a 303 is this old Roland synth, which created this whole genre of acid house. And it has a very interesting origin from India as well. There was like this composer called Charanjit Singh who made this album called like 7 Ragas to a Disco Beat. which also used 303 and acid sounds. I think one of the very first albums to use it, which was kind of preceding Detroit acid house, very futuristic. And I recently Glass Beans made a cover of that song, which is also like one of like I love Glass Beans, and they made a cover of it, which was like very awesome. Which is what pushed me to actually do this a week ago. And the thing is, this doesn't like I could not exactly replicate the 303 sound, so I would appreciate help. But then what I essentially looked for was like how it works internally, even though the blueprint is not something we can access publicly, because I think it's now owned by Yamaha, if I'm not wrong. I'm not sure who owns it, but then it's like something that's copyrighted of sorts. But then we could get close to the sound, which is what I've tried to do. I just need a small help. Like I'm just going to play this, and I want to see if y'all can hear it. Is this sound audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, perfect. So what I'm doing here is I'm defining this 303 class, which is kind of inherited from
Okay,
Gated.
can you play it again? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was very like short, which is why maybe.
Oh, okay. I can increase the duration.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's very faint as well.
Oh, my volume is like full.
How?
Do I have an option to increase it over Zoom? Is what I'm checking. Okay, I don't. I don't have amplitude, I think. Oh, there is an error. I need to fix it. But is this too low, or can you all hear at least like a like
It's
how it sounds like?
it's very low for us, I guess.
But
It's
if
also
everybody
because-
else is able to hear that,
Yeah.
it's actually fine.
It's audible, but it's like the volume is a bit faint.
But it's fine, I
It
guess.
is
We
audible.
can continue. Maybe like we'll hear it when you show us something new.
Okay, cool, perfect. I think that would work. I can also kind of set the frequency to something higher. Now it
Yes.
should be
That's
higher.
that we heard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a higher frequency, which will make the sound not sound very nice. But yeah, if you all can hear it, that's awesome. What I'm doing essentially is I'm defining a class with on top of the sound, and like which means this can actually play a sound, and I'm adding like a couple of envelopes, and these are the parameters for like attack, sustain, release, and decay, and these are all in seconds. So if I kind of change this attack, right, like now it's 0.05, and the sound is playing for like 1 second. So if I make the attack value to like 0.5, then oops. So you would hear it like start a little bit low and start like increasing from like 0.5 seconds. And if I make it 1, which is very bad, you will hear the attack also go very differently. So it will only reach its maximum volume at the very end of such. And if I make it like 0.001 as before, 0.01 as before, you'd hear it just like start blasting from the get-go. So essentially this is the ASDR curve that I've set, and this is another envelope that I've defined, and the oscillator here creates like a sine wave, but then for a 303 synth, sine wave doesn't work. It has to be a sawtooth wave. So a modulated sawtooth wave is what makes acid sounds. So this is just a modulated sawtooth wave on top of just an envelope. So this is what it sounds like. Oh, this is I think a bit louder, so I can probably decrease the frequency. Okay, perfect. This is audible for everyone, right? This should be loud enough. I think sine wave was maybe a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for the 303, what I did was on top of this oscillator, I just added a butter filter with low pass. Actually, let's try it. So yeah, this is this 303 sound that I built, and what it essentially does is it's just a sawtooth wave with an envelope, and that envelope is kind of modulated with a butter filter, and the butter filter has an other envelope on top of it where the ASDR curves goes exponentially and not linearly. So that's the basic structure of this, and I think I got something that sounds like this. Oh, it's not loading. Oh, is my sound still audible?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think what I did was I am just still using the oscillator on top of the envelope. I think I should use the filter on top of the envelope, which is my mistake. So now it should be different. It did change. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is what I came up with. I don't think it sounds acid enough, at least for me. So I would love some feedback onto how I can make this sound more acid. And I think I was just having fun just playing around with it. Like I just add like a high pass. So this is like it with a high pass filter, and when I change it to like low pass, it changes to this. And I could also just play around with like what the envelope is, make the sustain a little bit different. So what my idea was, I wanted to make this into like a live coding tool, because right now I hate that I'm changing the value every 5 seconds and playing it again. I would ideally want it to be like tunable of sorts. So I want to add MIDI inputs to this as well, so that I could hook up my MIDI keyboard and just play around with like a synthesizer that I wrote as a Python class, which I think sounds like a fun thing to do. And maybe kind of accept inputs from my MIDI knobs and sliders, which kind of changes the envelopes, maybe changes the oscillator, changes the filter and decay and all the other stuff like that. And kind of give me like a tool. So yet another live coding tool. But no, I think this was like a fun experiment to build like synthesizers from scratch. And this package essentially doesn't require any dependencies. It's purely based out of scientific Python libraries like NumPy and stuff. Because I think there are a lot of packages like PyTorch, like Torch Audio, which essentially actually give you like a synthesizer to build, which I didn't want to use. So this is just like built using NumPy and SciPy and just like sine waves. So just like looking at what the oscillator is like, it's essentially using like NumPy to like create the sine wave. So np.sine, and for the sawtooth wave it's just like having the harmonic equation and getting the sawtooth wave and stuff like that. So if anyone is interested, you can just like head to this repo. I can share it like once I'm back on the call. And also you can, this notebook is inside examples in 303. This is the first synth I tried out, but I want to create some more interesting sounds to see how that works out. Maybe do some modulation, kind of multiply a couple of oscillators probably, because here is just one oscillator. So maybe I could do a multiplication, add another oscillator as well. Oh, I could just try it. Uh, oh, I think it should also have a frequency. Yeah, so this is like a multiplication of like kind of modulation of a sine oscillator and a sawtooth oscillator together, which is like another interesting sound. So I think I want to do some more experiments with it, and maybe add more control, because right now what I have is very basic. I would also want to add noise. That is my next thing. Like I want to add a noise oscillator which can generate noises of different colors, and maybe I can play around with those, like modulate them and create interesting sounds out of it. Uh, so yeah, I think that's mostly it. If anyone wants to discuss anything, I'm just opening the floor, or I can just end my talk also. Whatever. This is what I had essentially to present.
Thank you. This is so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have a question. Um, do you have any like ideas on like making something unique with the tool? Like for example, Sonic Pi has multi-threaded, or like there was this other one called Bespoke that made it a lot more interactive to make music on the fly. So do you have any ideas on how you want to make this unique?
Oh yeah, so I think this was kind of inspired by Bespoke slash Max MSP slash Pure Data, which gave us like ways to like visually build synthesizers. And I feel like that is like a wonderful way to do things actually, because this 303 is actually borrowed from this tutorial called Delicious Max MSP, where this dude actually builds a 303 synthesizer from scratch using Max MSP, and you can do that I think with Bespoke as well, which gives these components. And I think what I want to do uniquely is actually make it object oriented, like represent these graphs as like classes, which is essentially what is different. Other than that, I think this is just another medium. I don't think there's anything like very novel about this. I would be open to ideas though, like if you have any ideas of any ideas to make this more unique of sorts. But this was just an experiment from me. Like I wanted to replicate it with just like software and see if I can just have it run through as a class that you could probably use it anywhere else. Like this can just be a Python package imported, used independently in like other interfaces, and people could build UIs on top of it as well. Like if someone wants to build something like Bespoke or something, you could just pull out the components and then build a UI on top of it of sorts of. Yeah, but
Yeah, I think it's like has a lot of potential. Like you say, it can be put anywhere, right?
yeah. That's the main thing. I wanted to make it like a package that, and I think Python packages have been like are being used everywhere right now. Like,
Yeah.
like, so it
But
might
like
be
any specific needs will be definitely achievable. Like any interactive medium, like or a installation can use like specific audio needs that can be made on this.
So there's this one thing that we were looking at, experiments with Google. There's a website called Experiments with Google, and they did something on similar lines where they used different inputs. So body movements became one of the inputs to create music. Then there was, like you mentioned about the keyboard as well, using that as an input. And each key had a visual shape to it. So it's a circle would be J or a square would be something else. So that became visually very interesting as well. Like, it was very interactive. That's it. Sorry, I'm mute.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. That sounds very cool, and I think I had something of the similar lines I wanted to do because Sonic Pi can accept OSC outputs, and I wanted to hook up my phone's gyro, and then like kind of get input through OSC from my phone's gyro into Sonic Pi, and then use that to like control some parameter. But then the issue that I faced was whatever parameter I was giving people control over, that was messing up the sound output. And then what I ended up doing was actually panning it depending on the user and not changing anything else. Like, so as you move your phone, it just pans to like the different audio rather than like changing. But yeah, I think that's a very interesting experiment. And with Sonic Pi, it's actually very easy because it can accept OSC. And like I'm biased towards OSC. I love it more than MIDI in terms of like you can do like a lot more things with it. If you know how to move around with software. So yeah, that I think I would love to explore that. That's a very interesting idea.
So, like, it's really cool that you mentioned Charanjit Singh, like, represent the guys. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like all of y'all should listen to the album. It sounds like it came out yesterday. Like, that's how good it sounds. It came out back in like the 60s or 70s or something.
I think it was
Like,
83.
oh, okay, right.
I don't know. I remember it.
Peace, you got it, bro. But yeah, I was just wondering, sort of, um, like how you plan on using, like, I mean, the object-oriented part, I sort of understand that is you as a developer, but you as a sort of consumer of music and a musician, yourself, like, uh, where do you sort of see these use something like this being used? I mean, it's So what's different about the way that you're approaching synthesis over here?
Okay, so I think this project essentially started for me when I was like, this is a very interesting story also. Like, I was talking to like this person I had met who was actually teaching kids to like explore these tools. And then I think Sonic Pi was also created with a similar intention to kind of expose kids to like programming, but then without doing something intense. You are creating sounds, and that sounds very interesting. And I felt like if somebody had taught me how to do object oriented programming by letting me build a synthesizer, I would have loved it so much. And I would have jumped into it rather than getting super bored by it, which I did, and which is why I actually jumped into functional programming also. But I think what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of experiment with paradigms as well, kind of find parallels with. I think that's been my whole focus when exploring music with programming, was like find out parallels between these two, which was actually my earlier CCSanté talk when I had come to the conference, which was like these programming parallels with like music and coding. Like you are writing loops, right? Live loops, which is essentially what you do when you're writing code. You have these patterns that repeat itself every n seconds. Drum sequences, essentially you are sequencing things. Loops, sequences, and here you can do some, like you are kind of updating the loops live, some kind of experimentation, and different data structures also, right? Like you can essentially define a graph where you are building a synth with a directed acyclic graph, and you are kind of inside everything there are like waves that are going on, like I was very interested in finding like parallels between programming paradigms and music paradigms, and which is what I wanted to do with this. I think so, and this is like I think I want to try it with functional as well. Like let's say I'm picking up a functional language, or if somebody is building this with Rust, or with like OCaml, or a language where you should not write like classical classes, but essentially you have these components that you can hook up by just doing something recursive, right? Like building like a recursive graph of these components, which is not object oriented but could be more functional. That is something I'm also interested to explore. But yeah, like that's I think the main interest for me, at least in this. Like I want to explore like how in all the different ways I can express music in programming paradigms. Pick up random stuff, try to implement it, see how it works. Like, but I don't know if it might be like a good way or if it might be useful in different ways. Probably this could be like picked up for parts and used in different places, which I feel is a good use for it either way. But yeah, that was in the end of the day my goal, just to
I
experiment
think
with these paradigms.
it'll also be very cool if there's people who want to contribute to this. So if you want, you should definitely drop the link. So if
Yes.
people want to um, check your code, contribute, that would be super cool.
It feels like a great learning tool. I mean, to me, like you said, like, you know, uh, one of my, I mean, people learn programming through like lots of different ways, and like this could be one of those, or the other way around, sort of. Yeah, this is very good.
Yeah, I would love to build this as a tool for that, because even for me it is like learning, because I found Max MSP a little intimidating, to be very honest. Even bespoke, when I looked at it, when I just dragged and dropped these components which are like oscillators, sequencers, I was like, what the hell is this? I don't know what to click, I don't know what to do. But then I would love to, like, I think for coming from a programming background, this was a little less intimidating. I understand how classes can be intimidating to someone who's coming from a different background, but I think who's someone coming from a programming background and wants to get into music, I feel like building a synthesizer could be easier done with like just classes and code. uh, and I think, yeah, this is another way to get introduced to it. And I think my next step is to create some unique sounds with this, like maybe write different classes. I think till now I've been trying to replicate popular synth sounds like 303s, maybe create like something unique out of it, and maybe give that as a blueprint for people to build on top of, something like that. So yeah, if anyone's interested in this project, I've shared the GitHub repo. You can just like raise an issue or just ping me on Instagram or anywhere. I'm roguentropy on Instagram. Uh,
Yes,
and
I've
I would
put
love
your
to.
Instagram link also in the chat for people
Oh,
to see.
thank you so much. You're amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Oh, I have
And
one more question. Is that allowed?
yes, yes,
Sure.
please.
Okay.
I just wanted to know because I've been following most of your live coding things, and you've also been like collaborating with a lot of artists who use traditional stuff. So I wanted to know, like, in that context, is there a direction you're feeling you want to take this, or is this like something you're trying to do totally in another direction? I don't know. I'm just curious because I feel like you have a really good life practice, and I was wanting to know where the two will come together.
Oh, thank you so much. It feels very nice to hear that people watch. uh, and I think this is a project that right now, to be very honest, I'm working independently of what I'm doing in terms of like music stuff. Because with music, I've just not been experimenting too much. Like the stuff that I've been doing is like pretty generic. I wanted to kind of reproduce genres that I love and I've not been kind of playing much around with it. But then I think for me, one goal which I have set for me, which I want to do, a very realistic timeline is by the end of this year, I want to make a song with this uh, package, like with this library that I had wrote. Maybe allow it to accept MIDI input and create like a live coding tool where I could kind of perform something. Uh, yeah, that is the goal. Maybe add some samples, like a way to play things in threads, which is now actually very easier with Python. Python doesn't have GIL anymore. With the new version, we can disable the GIL and kind of do like pure multi-threading with Python, which was not possible before with the newest version. So it's very interesting the possibilities that Python could be a language where you could actually do things like SonicPy, which was not possible before because Python doesn't allow for pure multi-threading. It actually shares context by like blocking the GIL. And I don't want to get more technical, but yeah, you can do pure multi-threading now in Python, which opens up a lot of possibilities to like make this an actual live coding tool because it needs to be multi-threaded, like to actually run things in parallel, make changes and stuff like that. So that's what I want to do. But not right now. I think it's like it's way ahead. Right now, I'm just starting with it, trying to create sounds. But if I hear something interesting, I would love to make something out of it for sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Ambika. Ambika might be having like some network issues because there seems to be like a internet shutdown. Okay, but you're here. Okay, so we can go to you
I'll
now.
try till I try, and then if it goes away, then more time for jamming.
We blame government.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Some of you already know me, but if you don't, I'm Ambika, and I also go by Computational Mama, and I have a small practice out of Udaipur, which is like, I don't know why, but there's some weird kind of communal unrest going on, which is very unheard of for our city. And I'm happy to see Nikhil there. Nikhil, we had once spoken to Nikhil for a project of Ajay's, and he's amazingly talented. So nice to see him as well.
Yeah.
But I don't have a presentation or anything, but I'll just run you through some of my experiments with. Wait, can I not share the whole screen? I can, right? Some of my experiments with microcontrollers over the years. And I will on the outset tell you that me and my husband met in a Arduino workshop in 2000 and whenever, when there were no like, I think maybe 9 or 10. And then neither of us really made anything of it, but it became a very sort of, it got stuck in my mind as something I really wanted to do. Um, and and then subsequently, in like 2015 or something, I was trying to, like SSH into a Raspberry Pi. So like my fascination for like tiny computing has always been there. And then I couldn't do it. And then my really high-tech friend suggested I should dual boot into Linux, and my laptop was so shitty that it caught fire when I tried to dual boot it. So I feel like, but I felt like those experiments made me less scared of technology, and like I can understand its fragility and like this nature of care that we can take with it, and like to open things and see them and like understand how they work. Of course, generationally also, we grew up in a time where you could open electronics and like fix them, and unko if there's like dust, you can just do foo and it starts working. And I mean, I don't know what kind of age group there is now. So what happened is that I got really interested in keyboards in during COVID, like everybody else. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I bought a bunch of switches. Wait, how do I shut the audio? Yeah. And so I was like, I bought these switches because they were the cheapest switches I could find on the web, on like an Indian website, because like a packet of them was like 400 rupees, like some 8 or 10 or whatever. I was like, okay, but I'm interested. Let's see what. And it was the same time that Raspberry Pi came up with the RP 2040. And somehow, like the costs were like reasonable that I was like, okay, can I do something with these? What does it mean? Like, and then I realized it has only two connections, just like a negative and a data. So I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And my only previous experience with a microcontroller was an Arduino, so I didn't know things had really changed. So this is like 2020, so it's literally 10 years in the timeline. And then I was like, okay, let's see what we can try. So then I like figured that now you have what is called HID, which is like human interface, whatever, I don't know, like basically you can use it like a mouse or a keyboard. So I was like, okay, if that's the case, what would it mean? What would it mean for me to like hook this up and make a keyboard out of it rather than the keyboard that I have already, which I've probably paid a decent amount of money for. But then I was like, okay, I'm already doing like so many P5 sketches. Can I not just hook it up to P5? Like, what would that mean? So this is just a P5 sketch. I like literally did the like month before, which is just like a CSV full of letters and the sentence changes. And suddenly to me, this became a very interesting kind of spatial relationship, which I had not thought of with my coding practice, because uh, I come from a very exhibition design, museum design kind of background. And this was probably this really stupid, janky looking prototype is when I made that connection that, hey, what if this was a full screen and I just gave everybody just this one button? But all of those processes that I was so excited about then suddenly open up to a host of new kind of interactions, because for like a general person who's experiencing your piece, putting a keyboard or a mouse will immediately like shatter that experience, because it's like suddenly you're back in that very consumer kind of behavior. And I was like, okay, what would it mean if I could just switch this out? So anyway, I tried, and then I was like, okay, what if I made those experiments, like I reversed it, like if I was able to get the same sketches and code back into a little screen. So I was like exploring scale differently. I don't know if this is important. And then the same sentences now in a like a very tiny, like 150 rupee screen or whatever this is. So I was thinking about these quite a bit, and my experiments kind of had to close at some point because Yugen was growing at a point where he was really curious, and I didn't want him to get hurt because, you know, sometimes there's solder and things. And he has like, now he's older, so he has boundaries. So then I started thinking about what these prototypes can be. And I had very limited time to like go out into the market and like find things. And, you know, like as designers, we are used to that ki bazaar mein jaake vendor se just, sorry for the Hindi, that you can just go and like buy something and, you know, like prototype with the vendor, which is very common for designers, that you just go there and the vendor says, I have this material, you know, we can do this is how much it will cost. But I had none of that access at that point between, you know, COVID and, you know, managing again. So I was like, okay, chalo jo hai ghar pe, let's make. So like I made one with the old, I don't know, you know, hing ka dabba, like which you put in dal. So this is just that, and I just like jammed the joystick on top of it, which I just cut out with a cutter. And then I did the same thing, like it's just mouse X, mouse Y on a P5J sketch, but suddenly, you're changing the physical interface of how that's happening. So this was really playing on my mind, and I was really like, it's been something that's really fascinated me, that how can I kind of keep upping this idea. And then I think it was Agat, my partner. He's a theater maker, and he lives in Netherlands. So usually there you have very little budget. So what you end up doing is you have like a very small team, like one or two performers, and then maybe somebody just like your friend comes and helps you with the tech bit, like abhi music chalana hai, abhi light on karna, like that kind of thing. So in my mind, I was like, what if that were a little box which could be fully designed to look like part of the experiment, like what if you had these controls right in the middle of your performance, and nobody really sees them as these industrial pieces. Of course, this was not that, but that idea was kind of floating in my brain. So like there's this Robu, the guys who do these, like that's where I buy the parts. So they have like a 3D printing service. So I just sent I just made it in Figma, and I sent them a drawing. I said, okay, I want the top plate to be like this, and this is what the 3D is like. And then they send me like these boxes. So some of it worked, some didn't work. Because I also didn't have I didn't have the patience also to like go through like AutoCAD and make the drawing exactly how I needed it to be. But I was like, okay, I'm happy with the like idea of how these experiments are flowing. And at some point I'll see where it comes back. And typically, like that is how I kind of balance the two aspects of the practice. One is the very conceptual pieces, and then the other part is what are these kind of medium based things that you're trying. And this is where it kind of like, so this is 2000 and whatever 2021, and then this year in January, just 24, somebody said that, hey, we want to do an AI installation, and can you come and do it for us? I was like, okay, fine. And I had an idea and everything. I was like, okay, what do I do? So I was like, okay, I'll just show you a very brief picture of this. Is Jasan. He's also one of our members, very talented members of our creative coding community. So I was like, okay, I want this big screen, and on this screen I want I'll show you this how the thing works as well. I want this big screen, and I want the AI to like, what would it mean for the AI to embody us? Let's not go into that piece, but the idea was that the experience should have some interactivity, but I didn't want a mouse. I didn't want a keyboard. So I was like, okay, what the hell? What do I do now? So I was like, okay. So then I found, I don't know if it's here in these videos. Wait. I found a very, very small microcontroller. Maybe you can guys see it on the computer here. It's like this tiny. This is my fingernail. I don't know. Is it visible?
Yes, yes.
I can't remove it, but then
Yeah, we can see it.
So yeah, so basically it's let me just show you on the internet. It's called a rotary trinky. Yeah, so it's like this tiny rotary thingy, and it's got a USB. So like you can program it with Circuit Python or Arduino, and it'll do whatever function you want. So I told Jason, see, Jason, I want that people are able to use it without a sort of regular consumer looking piece. And then what do we do? So he's like, okay, you can use a MIDI or you can use keyboard. So I was like, hey, I did these experiments in like whenever, and I know that you can use you can basically assign, each of the keys is just assigned. So basically when it's rotating this piece, if it rotates to clockwise, it just gives a full stop. And then if it goes, so if I can show you on this is my least prepared presentation like ever. So sorry about that, guys. Like my mom would scold me if she knew how ill-prepared I am. So like you see, this is the box. So if I rotate it this way, it gives me a full stop. And if I rotate it the other way, it gives me a comma. And then if I click it, it gives me a 1. So that's it. We just needed 3 keyboard assignments. So Jason gave me 3 keyboard assignments. So every time it's full stop, it goes this way, or every time it's that way. So I'll just show you what that looks like. Sorry. My brain, my desktop, my folders, and my mind, and my house, and my room are all in the same condition. They're a gigantic mess. So sorry, guys. Yeah. So basically, this was the kind of visual I wanted on this. You saw that picture. It's like this big monitor, and you can like choose between these, and the camera opens up, and then the camera gives you like a little AI generated image based on your vision. Now, my own laptop is so untechnical that I can't even run the AI model for you. But what I will do is separate window. Yep. I'll just show you. So can you see the bigger screen now with my mouse?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so basically, this was your little box. I can keep it as far away as I want because it's just a USB wire. And then every time I move it, it kind of like gives me whichever one I want. And then, so basically, if I'm going this way, it's just like full stop, full stop, full stop. And if I go this way, it's just like comma, comma, comma. And then if I hit one, it will just give me whichever one that I picked. Hopefully, I don't know what will come. हो सकता है चल भी नहीं रहा है because it got used by like 100 people there. So then it takes your image as a visitor and it converts it into this kind of AI image. I don't know, something might turn up, I'm not sure. But as far as I know, my AI engine is not working. Yeah. So anyway, so basically it allows I'll just go back to the main screen. Sorry, guys.
I just put in the chat also, it's not under preparation. This is live coding field.
So yeah, so eventually it ends up looking like this, like little pedestal with this little box on it, and then you have no sense that it's just like a key press. So whether that's a touch designer file in the front in the big screen, or whether it ends up being a P5JS or whatever else, any other interactive software that we use, it automatically like gives the visitor or the person who's experiencing it a like it shifts their kind of sensibility of what this piece is about. So that's what I was exploring, and I think it was very interesting because actually this box which you see is like a 300 rupees ka, Amazon like jewelry wooden box. It's nothing big, and that little trinket is like about $1,000, which is probably more expensive than else in the program in the project. And then Aga just drilled it for me. Sorry. And then I had like a little side to put the wire in, and maybe here you'll see the. Yeah, so see, this is how small that trinket is. And that's it. So it was so simple. So like I felt like that like bunch of experiments I did, which had no consequence, no money, and even probably no recognition, suddenly like switched in context of like this bigger project that I was doing. And it gave us a very simple, elegant little solution, which otherwise, I was like, oh, should I buy a Akai MIDI? And then, the MIDIs are going to do. I was like, no way, I'm not going to go into all that nonsense. So I just like, and this knob, like I went to the local maker space in Udaipur. We have a very beautiful maker space here. And I was like, okay, how do I build it? And they're like, you have to do it yourself because that's the rule of the maker space. We are not going to help you. So they just gave me a piece of wood and they're like, "Ab isko baith ke ghiso." So मैंने 2 घंटे usko baith ke अच्छे से घिसा. So it was good fun. And then I was like, okay, now how do I like take these explorations further? And there was something about all of these pieces which are still very like boxy, and they don't like give you space for like softness. And sometimes I feel like I need that in my pieces, and also with Nanditi and I do this like code drift together, and then sometimes we perform. So I was like, okay, what if these kind of inputs were there in the P5JS sketch? That would look pretty interesting. But I was like, no, if they're going to look like knobs, they're going to look, I'll just look like any other VJ on any other stage, and that's so boring. And that's really like against my ethos as a person. So I was like, okay, what if they were like crunchy little nonsensical, objects, then they kind of make sound. So I didn't know what that meant, but I was like, okay, let me try. So I'll just show you what I've been trying here, and then to change my camera. Yeah, can you guys see this? Yeah. So in Udaipur, I have this. Actually, she was in Coding Santè. Some of you guys might know her. Yes, हिल क्यों रहा है crazy तरीके से? I don't know कैसे भी. It's kind of doing its own little P5JS on me. Wait, I think I was trying to rotate or something. Yeah. So basically, Annalise Mangesh and Shalin know her. Annalise is a artist who lives and works out of Udaipur. She does a lot of work with this kind of felt material. This is a local craft called Namda, which is basically like they use like waste of sheep felt, and they usually build like what are those, like rugs and things, and it's like pretty coarse, and like I feel like very itchy when I work with this material. But I was very interested to see what would it mean to like kind of take that material and say kind of stitch your little board onto it. This is a Flora, Ada Fruit Flora. It's like about maybe like 1600 rupees. And then instead of connectors, I decided what if I could use stitch buttons. And then I was like, okay, what if this would have a little like LED in the back, like this one? Yeah, sorry, aiming also. So yeah, so I've started building a little piece. I can show you, but it only does one thing, so I have to disconnect it. So this got a little piezo sensor in it, which is basically like, oh, stop this. I don't know what's happening. Wait, let me just try. मेरे पास बड़े सारे वेबकैम है तो मैं बहुत happy रहती हूँ. So basically, this is the piezo sensor here inside. It kind of looks like this. So basically, it's like it senses vibration, and I think it's also some version of it is used in the phones when we make them vibrate. So I was like, okay, what if we use that, and then the light kind of comes on, and then if I show you what the piezo sensor looks like, it's basically I just soldered the wire onto a touch button, and then I just put it in a little pocket, which is like this, little whatever. And then she gave me this beautiful like ball, which is like made out of wool. So I'm like, what if I put the buttons inside one part of the buttons, and then the piezo sensor can sit under, and then you have like this squeezy thing, and then maybe it's a MIDI, maybe it turns into a, I don't know, like again HID. So then, like, how does it affect the P5JS sketch, which also I can show you. I don't have some video, but you can also tell me if I'm running out of time. इसी में होगा. इतना messy, sorry guys. Let me see here. Yeah, this might be it. So basically I said, okay, if it's, again, it's like minus plus or whatever, like comma, full stop. So one is like increasing the stroke weight and one is decreasing the stroke weight. So I felt this would be really interesting, like in the middle of the performance, if you're not like suddenly typing, but like suddenly you're like jankily trying to, press things or like do something interesting to kind of change what that could mean for what is your idea of a performance. And I think for me, as part of the live coding scene, it's so crucial to see what it could mean to build aesthetics that are sort of near and dear to our culture and our ideas of what it could mean to live code. Otherwise, what is it like? दो reaction diffusion चिपका दो, एक like एक pixel sorting कर दो, and you're good to go and it's over. And I feel like we are way better than that. Culturally, we have a lot more to offer. So I feel like there's some space for us to kind of look at it. And usually I like Yugen to test it because I feel like if he can try it, then I think it's pretty much foolproof. But it can also be sometimes very dangerous. But okay, like it's worth kind of giving him that chance to try. So there's another piece, similar kind of circuitry, but with a button, so that would change the light. So the idea is that perhaps these features, like these little whatever these flagella or whatever, I don't know how many of you had bio, can then kind of be the network. So like you add more, you remove some. Maybe they are basically like the attenuators of the synth. So instead of you having to like screw some knobs around, you're just like sticking these buttons together and it kind of changes the sine wave or something like that. I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud. Yeah, so this is what I showed you, the piezo sensor. So I just kind of, so I soldered it so badly that now it doesn't fit into the touch button. So like these are the kind of nonsensical problems that I'm facing. But primarily what ends up happening is that because we are using like just the software interface, it's so easy to debug. But here it's like this range. It could be power, it could be the wire, it could be the component itself, it could be your code. It could be something else. So like I find that very interesting as like a as a like patience related kind of a thing. So this okay, so now much of this has actually come out because I was scrolling through this website. Basically I've scrubbed it completely, which is very much thanks to creativity Pranshu, who's like basically like knows everything about microcontrollers that is there, possibly. So he guided me to this website, and they have some very beautiful ways of like looking at fabric based and soft circuits. So, like whatever, socks and belts. And they're also doing a very beautiful experiment of like polymerizing, making like same that piezo thing which I showed you. So like making fabric pressure resistive. But the whole research is around how can the steps be easy enough for someone to pull this off in the kitchen, like with materials and chemicals that are available to us, like locally in our markets. So it's very interesting. People are doing stuff with crochet, and then like if you pull it, the resistor changes. So for me, these kind of ideas really bring me back to my past in exhibition design, and like give me a space to kind of bring those two practices together. So you can have a look at this. Maybe I'll put one of the links in the chat, and then Anushka, you can. So, 1 second. So have a look at this. It's very cool. Like some people are, they electroplated fabric with copper. I don't know how they did it, or they etched it out. I don't know. They're doing really beautiful things with this. And the wonderful thing is that they like document it so thoroughly so that like you can pick up whatever you like. I mean, some of this material is not available in India, like conductive wool, I could not find. So which was really something we wanted to explore because Annalise's work is all in wool. So yeah, so that's what I've been kind of figuring where this project can go. And for once, I do have a GitHub link to the project. So I will send it to you guys here, and you guys can see if you want to help me with it. And if somebody has used any of these microcontrollers before, especially the textile ones, please help me because I'm always struggling with it. So yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Thank you for blowing my minds. This was so, and also during internet
This
where
is
you
still good.
Internet worked for us, yeah. Like, it came through in the end.
Yay. I have so many questions, but I'm gonna let people start if anybody else has questions.
When are you doing a workshop for all us normal humans who are not maths like you?
Yeah.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Tell us when you're doing a workshop for all of us normal human beings. Or do we need to come to Udaipur to take part and then
Yeah,
really
yeah,
figure
you
this
can
out?
100% come here. I always welcome people here. You can ask Shalin, Mangesh, Anushka, who have all come here. And point where once I had to tell Shalin and Mangesh, please, is bar mat aana. Bandwidth nahi hai. Sorry about that, guys. But it's really interesting, like how things have been panning out. But I feel like in this mess to call all of you, like this crazy like house of mine is totally impossible. But like we can meet at some beautiful places here. There are lovely locations. But I feel like I don't think I'm so smart at it because either Circuit Python or Arduino, both are like languages I'm not so naturally, I don't understand them so well. So I just feel a bit stuck. But the documentation like from Adafruit and all is so much. Yeah, oh yeah, so I got some of Adafruit has some lit conductor, yeah, but I could not find all of them on the various vendor sites. But I did get this very beautiful nylon fabric, which is got like a sticker at the back, so it can like become a little like paper circuit.
Mm.
So
Wow.
that was very interesting. And it worked. I used it with a bunch of LEDs and whatever. It's fun. Let's see.
Okay, I have a question. So with the mother, the thing that you built instead of like a keyboard or a thing that looks like technical, like how did people react to this? How did different people react to this? And like after doing this, what do you think in your next project? Or like
Okay,
what?
so if it's like a person, oh sorry, please complete.
No, that's it. That's my question.
हाँ सो थोड़ा थोड़ा कट के आ रहा है आवाज सो मैं कैमरा बंद करती हूँ मुझे लगता है I feel like people who see an interactive piece for the first time usually they are not everybody is so interested in knowing कि ये कैसे बना. They are more interested in playing with it. I'm sure Abhishek can also like confirm this with his piece. But the thing I find is that I feel like sometimes interactives can have the space where they infantilize the meaning of the project because people are like more interested in playing with the webcam and like making goofy faces and like so then I feel like then it's not just enough for the interactive to be there, but like the entire environment around it needs to be so uber controlled, which is fine. I feel that's okay. Uh, but it's kind of it keeps putting me off trying to build interactive pieces, which can sometimes be very personal to me, and I'm like talking about something very like real for me, and then people are just kind of coming in and making faces, which is like I feel like okay for a museum, but not okay for my work. So then I tend to feel like how do I get past that, and I have no answer. But I do know one artist whose work is very good, but my internet is very slow, so I'm just going to put their name in the chat.
Is there any work of theirs in specific that you really like?
All of it.
Okay. Thank you. I really like
Yeah, but for
but
Sarge's point, I feel like you need a
Oops, I think Ambika, you got on mute.
The internet strikes back, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm here, but I'm not here.
Now we can hear you. The ditch button idea really blew my mind. Ambika, if you're trying to talk, you're on mute again.
I really feel like one segment in CCSanté every time should just be people sharing one cool thing that they've seen recently. It is just mind blowing what people have been doing all around.
Yeah. I think maybe even Discord might work well for it, but then that's another social media thingy.
Yes, now that we have the new generation leading this, maybe Discord could work.
So I think Ambika's network might have dropped finally. Or
Seems to
something.
be,
I mean, I
yeah,
can tell you
reacting. Yeah.
you can put things in chat and then I can respond. Maybe
Okay.
that's easier if there is left.
But we can hear you now, like pretty well.
Okay. So did you ask something? I did not catch it.
I forgot what I was saying, but I was actually saying that the ditch button idea was so great. I would like, how did you come up with that? How did that happen?
No, it was on that Kobakant archive. Like I saw there were some other places where they had used it. So then I was like, oh, this seems to be easy. So basically, the thing is that some of the pieces that are built have conductive thread. So that acts like a wire, but it's pliable enough for you to sew, basically. So then at one end, you put the pitch button in one part, and then in your other part, you put the pitch button in the other part, and it works.
Beautiful. Okay, if yes, I think if other people have questions, they can drop it in the chat. Thank you so much for doing this in the middle of all of the chaos. It was amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me with all my chaos, my own chaos and my city's chaos and my home's chaos.
I love chaos.
Yeah, Rasagya, I can tell you separately about it. I don't know if this Mother Machine's website link has the updated stuff, but we just used Comfy UI. Maybe Jason can come and talk about the tech part. Like I very much left it up to him. I behaved like a proper artist on this part.
I shall bug you more and figure this out. Okay. I've been trying to at least figure out how to grapple a bit with AI. So it'll be nice to see what are easy ways to get started.
Cool. I'll send you some links you can try.
Who's then? Anusha? So
Yes.
let's continue on to the coding bit.
Yeah. Now I think we can jump into the group.
Yeah, I think like Abhinay was not able to make it today. Yeah, we
We will
got
have him next month.
yeah next month sometime. But yeah, we can start to do a live coding session. For I think everyone in the chat or online at least know how to code. I think we should. It's fine. You guys, I think you're new, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Maybe we can since Sangharshanan is here, I don't know if this how this sounds, please tell me. But maybe we can do a bit of live coding instead of P5. And also Ambika is here, so we can have visuals
Yeah.
also. Ambika, what do you think?
Ambika just left it.